Please welcome Mark Davis to the Cloud Computing Conference.
We're going to be talking about changes in cloud computing. Now that the world of cloud computing is starting to get a little more established, what can we expect to see later this year and in the years going forward in terms of changes? But before we do that, I just want to have a little bit of fun. We've got an interesting group of people in this room. Obviously, you're, well, I would assume, since you're at NAB, you work in production or distribution or something like that. I would assume you're interested enough in cloud computing that you came to this session, right? So you must have some interest in it. But I'm curious to ask you, how many people in this room, show of hands, feel like you really understand what the cloud is? Okay, about 50%. There was a survey published recently that said about 44% say they really understand what the cloud is, so you're kind of in line with that. Let me ask you another question. Do you think that stormy weather can interfere with cloud computing? All right, I didn't catch anyone. I caught one guy on that one. Actually, you know what? Funnily enough, this same question was asked, and over 50% of people said yeah. Now, specific to production, how many people in here are currently using cloud-based production tools? A small number, okay, I'd say about 25%. How many people, and by the way, the industry is about 23% according to a recent survey by Avid and Ovum Research. But how many people are actively considering using cloud-based production tools? Okay, a lot more of you. And here the answer was 75%. Again, from the same Avid survey. So maybe you're in that group. Maybe you're looking at the different tools that are out there and trying to make sense of the ones that may make the most sense for you. Now, let's just start at the very top, right? What is the cloud? If you Wikipedia it, you'll find as much technobabble as you want, right? But let's just try and have a real simple definition of what it is. Basically, it's, even if you can't define what the cloud is, let's say if you're using, Gmail for your email, you're working in the cloud. If you're sharing video on YouTube or sharing files on Dropbox or iCloud, you're working in the cloud. And even if you're using any of the consumer-facing apps like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, if you're using any of this stuff, you're already working in the cloud, right? But let's actually try and come up with a simple definition, and here's one that I like. The cloud is just a place where you store stuff online and collaborate with other people. That's all, right? Another way to look at this is the cloud is, it's a data center, right? It's basically your data, but instead of living on your computer, it lives somewhere else in a data center. But it's not just the data that lives in other places, it's the apps too. And that's, to me, what I think is really one of the most important parts. And there was a question in the previous session about apps and how apps are getting virtualized and moving into the cloud. And I think that's actually one of the most interesting aspects of the cloud. But needless to say, there's been a lot of hype over the last few years, right? So the question is, well, why so much hype? So let me throw some numbers out there. Last year, there were 150 million people using the cloud. And this isn't including the Facebooks of the world. That's a billion on their own, right? 150 million people using it for their job. This year, it's going to be up to 500 million people. Last year, the industry was worth about $40 billion, which is a large number, right? But in 3 years, it's going to be $100 billion, according to one of the estimates. And in fact, if you look at the fastest growing industries in the world, you've got things like solar power, video games, biotech. But the fastest growing industry by a comfortable margin is cloud computing still, has been for a number of years. So that's why there's so much hype, okay? But let me ask you another question. Who's sick of hearing all the hype about the cloud? Right? I am, okay. And I think let's just move past that, right? And let's get to something that's more interesting, okay? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for us, people in this industry, as a practical matter? What do we actually do with this stuff? Okay, fine. The cloud is a profound shift in the way we compute, fine. It can be faster, it can be cheaper, it can be safer. But what does that mean, okay? That's what I want to talk about over the next few minutes. And the theme I want to use is connecting the dots. Again, getting back to this concept of apps moving into the cloud. Because what you're going to start to see is, yeah, you're still going to hear about infrastructure and some of the background technologies, but for you as a user sitting at your computer, what does it look like to you? You're going to start to see the dots really connect in terms of the apps that you're using. And I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like, a real-world example. And I'm going to show you my company. And I'm going to show you this technology to make the point. But keep in mind, the broader point here is how apps can really start to talk to each other and what that means and why that's a good thing. Okay? All right, so what you're seeing here is Scenios. It's my company. We got a great team of developers building this. If you haven't heard of it, it's a cloud-based platform for film and TV production. There are a couple thousand productions using it. So if you haven't tried it, check it out. It's a free tool, actually. So what you're seeing here is I'm logged into Scenios. I'm logged into a project called My New Show. And you see two blue buttons, one that says Production Office and one that says Production Apps. Okay? So if I open up Production Office, I see a number of apps that appear there. So the first is my contact list. Okay, so I can connect people to my production. It's just like connecting to someone on Facebook or LinkedIn. You send them an invitation, they connect, and then you can begin collaborating with them on the project. Next is a calendar, simple web-based calendar, keep everybody synced up, and then a file cabinet. Now, some of the more technically oriented people may call this bit digital asset management. We kind of steer away from those kind of technical words. It's just sharing files, right? And so you can share pretty much any kind of file that you would want to share. Now, where it starts to get really interesting, I think, is this next area, production apps. Okay, so if we go into the production apps area, on Scenios, if you set up a new project, you'll see 4 apps by default. First, you'll see, and actually, today, we're making an announcement right now about the availability of this new app. It's the new Scenios script app. So I don't have enough time to go into a lot of detail. It's a script writing application. So if you're familiar with Final Draft, it's similar in certain ways. We think it's a little better. And of course, it's a free app. So you can go in and you can write your script in Scenios. The next app you're going to see is a shoot schedule app. And again, I don't have time to go into all the details, but the point here is that you can write your script, and then once you've got your script and you're ready to do your shoot schedule, these files are connected, right? Because historically, most people, especially if you're working in long-form scripted content, right, you're going to write your script in Final Draft, and you're going to do your shoot schedule in Movie Magic scheduling. But those are siloed desktop apps. They don't communicate with each other. You almost literally have to cut and paste stuff from one to the other. But when you're working in the cloud and the apps are talking to each other, you can make changes to the script and they flow through in real time to the shoot schedule. The apps are connected. You're connecting the dots, okay? The next app is, we teamed up with Google to make, it's pretty sweet actually, a little location manager app to manage your locations for your show. And then we've got what we call a video hub, where you can upload professional video files, whether they're Avid or ProRes or whatever they are, and share and collaborate. There's different things you can do with the video files. You can view a low-res proxy, a high-def version. You can download the original source file. You can do reviews and approvals, and you can email screening copies, that kind of stuff. But this is actually, we're about to make this today at NAB. We're making a second announcement besides the availability of Scenios Script, which is the new Scenios App Center. Basically, all Scenios users, when they go into a project now, will see a gray button that says Browse More Apps. And when you click on that button, you go into the new App Center. So you can see apps that are there. If they have a check mark, that means they've been installed in the project. And ones that haven't been installed, you can easily install them. You just click on an app. So for example, I click on the script app. It gives me a little teaser video, a little demo video, and then if you want to install it, you just click the install button. This one's already been installed, so it says already installed. So it just takes a few seconds to install each app for each show that you're working on. The next section is, we kind of distinguish apps and features on Scenios. So apps are, they show up in the left-hand menu there under production apps. Features are things that appear throughout Scenios, just kind of when you need them, right? So for example, script watermarker, script commenter, script highlighter. There's even a video conference room built into Scenios. So you can video conference with up to 8 people in your Scenios project. So you can literally have a live video link on top of your on top of your Scenios projects. You can all look at your script or your shoot schedule, whatever you're going to be looking at. The last section of the App Center is a roadmap of what's coming. So we get a lot of questions from the community of Scenios users. Have you thought about building this? Are you going to build that? So what we thought we would want to do is, well, let's just be completely transparent about what we're building and what's coming down the road. And in fact, in about a month, what you're going to see here is you're going to be able to vote for apps that you want the most, and the community will vote on the most popular apps, and those will be the ones that we build next. So that's when we talk about starting to connect the dots, and to your question earlier about what does it look like when apps move into the cloud, you've just seen an example of how easy it can be to start getting these apps easily accessible and talking to each other. And I think this is one of the themes that you'll start to see later in the year on other platforms, on other technologies, where now the conversation will start shifting from a lot of the back-end infrastructure stuff to the more fun sort of UI user experience stuff. And so with that, I will say thank you, and I'll hand back to Marty.